all more or less know the order of what is going to happen today. We will start now with this short talk, then soon after, a panel with several participants, and later, at 7 p.m., the lecture by our director. All right. The lecture by our director will focus on the theme of coexistence. The idea was that, before we dive into this central theme, for our philosophy gathering this year, for our Philosophy Day, we wanted to address a theme that is almost a prerequisite. Because to coexist, obviously, you don't need to dive deep into English etymology to understand that it comes from to live. It is very difficult for us to truly coexist without first having a concern for this aspect of life, which, in a way, is also a form of coexistence with ourselves. So, we will make a brief reflection where we will talk about this art of living as a set of foundational principles. Principles that are imposed as a precondition for living well with others. In other words, first and foremost, one must learn to live with oneself. And for that, it is necessary to have some knowledge of oneself. Establish a relationship, don't remain empty. Regarding this topic, just to illustrate and introduce it, because, of course, there is a vast amount of material on this subject within philosophy. There is nothing more connected to philosophy than life itself. The two, life and philosophy, serve one another. So, I made a selection based on a book. Obviously, some of you who already know me might say, here she goes again, recommending an out-of-print book. This one is out of print too, it is not my fault. It is The Art of Living by Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher. It is a wonderful book, and it seems there is a direct connection between wonderful books and those that are no longer reprinted. So, it has been out of print for some time. You might find it in second-hand bookstores, but it is a real gem. At some point, we will manage to bring this book back to bookstores. It is one of the most fascinating works we have on this subject. And we are going to explore some topics from this book. I have also selected some images. As you can see here, there is no one standing in front of the slide, it is just an image. It is a Renaissance painting by Raphael. So, I will be illustrating Epictetus' thoughts with images from the Renaissance. Because both Epictetus and the school he belonged to, Stoicism as well as the Renaissance, are deeply humanistic. We are talking about the human being. The way the human being functions. Because the art of living is this. How does the human being work? Remember, many of you I see here have been my students. And I used to joke in class and say, you buy a blender with only 2 settings. Click, click. And it comes with a manual in 5 languages, teaching you how to do click, click. But when it comes to human life, no one teaches us, no one tells us how it works. The art of living is complex and more difficult than operating any other device. As Jung used to say, it is easier to start from scratch and take a man to the moon than to start from scratch and take a man into the depths of himself. So it is a complex art. And one that, unfortunately, we do not include in our education, in our modern schooling. It is a very technical, highly utilitarian education that teaches know-how. How to do things, but not why, not the why or the where to, which would be the true domain and focus of philosophy. So, we begin to speak about this aspect of living and coexisting, loneliness and isolation. These are 2 concepts that we often confuse. You will notice that solitude is something absolutely healthy and necessary. Isolation, on the other hand, is harmful. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the number of people around you. It has to do with how disconnected you are from yourself. Isolation is a great, let's say, a distancing from oneself, a lack of self-knowledge, a lack of inner dialogue. I also often point out that if you compare a city like New York with a small town of 10,000 inhabitants, it is actually more common to find people suffering from loneliness in New York than in that small town. It is not the lack of people around you, it is not the absence of external life, it is the absence of inner life. Establishing an internal dialogue, getting to know yourself, is the only truly effective way to overcome loneliness. Loneliness in the negative sense. Because loneliness, in the positive sense, you won't find a single school of philosophy that does not recommend practicing it. Plato used to say, from his divine wisdom, set a meeting with your soul. Pythagoras, in his school, advised, keep a daily journal. You must have time to engage in dialogue with yourself. Not for show, not for others, just inward, with yourself, to truly meet who you are. And that would be a healthy kind of solitude. Remember? I want a house in the countryside where I can be the size of peace. That, too, is deeply philosophical. In other words, turning inward, having time for myself, so that when friends arrive, I have something meaningful to share. Because if I am superficial with myself, I will be superficial with everyone and everything around me. It so happens that we live in a time, and this has almost become a cliché to say, it is very commonplace, like a recurring theme. A time that is deeply materialistic, where we live in function of objects. Humanity has turned itself into an object, and has turned others into objects as well. And everything became a thing. And as mere things, we reduced ourselves to that. As if there were nothing within. As if we had no identity, no essence, that needs to be heard, that needs to have a say in our lives, that needs to express itself. And when that does not happen, it leads to unhappiness, because it is like a terrible repression of one's own self. So, shall we talk a bit about this inner and outer world? It is a phrase that, the first time I heard it, I found quite curious. What could this person mean by that? The more inward, the more outward. What does that mean? The more you are truly with yourself, the more you can be with others. If you are not with yourself, you won't be with anyone. Then the other becomes utilitarian. They serve your neediness, your need for a witness to your personal life, so that it doesn't go unnoticed. They serve some kind of purpose. We are not very aware of this manipulation, but we end up manipulating. Because a superficial person cannot have deep feelings. That would not be logical. So, the more inward, the more outward. We reach the heart of things, always starting from our own heart, from our own center. So, let's go to our Renaissance thinkers of today. This is basically the book. Flavius Arrian was a disciple of Epictetus. Epictetus was a slave. I won't go into details here. He was a Roman philosopher who spent the first part of his life in slavery. Flavius Arrian first wrote a book called Discourses. Later, he extracted and synthesized the discourses and wrote the manual. The manual of the philosopher Epictetus, the Enchiridion. Have I already told you? Epictetus was a slave during the first part of his life, and it seems that his master was, let's say, not exactly the calmest of people. He was irascible. Epictetus went through a very difficult period in his life. And yet, he developed thoughts that prepare a person to face any circumstance in life and to manage their life with great clarity. Well, this book, The Enchiridion, was translated by an American writer, Sharon Labelle, who created The Art of Living. It contains the same content, both books do, just presented with vocabulary that is more accessible for the 20th and 21st centuries. So it is a very pleasant and interesting book, one that can be read at random, open to any page, and contains some maxims of great beauty. For me, and I will show you in just a moment, a preview of what is to come, it holds one of the most beautiful concepts of happiness I have ever encountered. They are in there. It is a magnificent and complete concept of happiness, one that practically defines you in a way that empowers you to achieve your own happiness. Let's go. So, this is the book you will go looking for and won't be able to find. But try anyway, it doesn't hurt. Take a look. I even included the page number, just to make you even more frustrated. Every page is marked, and yet you still can't find the book. This quote about happiness is on page 24. Happiness is a verb. It is the continuous, dynamic, and ongoing performance of acts of value. Our life is built moment by moment. And it holds meaning for us and for the people we touch. It has an impact because it is beautiful. It is a deeply aesthetic thought, but at the same time, it contains many layers. At first glance, it seems that Epictetus did not know much about linguistic structure because happiness is a noun. How can happiness be a verb? It should be because this idea of happiness as a noun makes it seem like it's something someone will give us, or something we'll eventually reach. Either it is here in this moment, or it won't be anywhere at all. So how does it exist? In that verb, in that continuous action, what verb could we create for that? Generate happiness, to felicitate? I don't know, something that wouldn't just mean offering congratulations to someone else, but rather conquering it moment by moment, in a continuous struggle, claiming every inch of your own happiness through each gesture you make, when you act in a truly human way. That is the heart of the matter. Because all beings were made to be happy, according to their own identity. No one will be happy doing something that doesn't align with who they are. So, the old example I always give, a plant is happy being a plant. A stone as a stone, an animal as an animal. There's nothing that can change that. Don't offer any kind of program to a plant that would make it happier than doing photosynthesis. Because that is truly what it was born to do. It is an absolute vocation. It fulfills itself by doing that. And that's what makes it a plant. Animals, with their instinct for survival and perpetuation of the species, are happy. They fulfill themselves as animals and do what nature expects of them. Human beings are happy when they live by values, virtues, and wisdom. When they bring these qualities into the world. Not only are they happy, but they also benefit the greatest number of beings around them. If you stop to observe, this is what we lack most in today's world. It is human beings fulfilling the role of human beings. Because what we need most are values, virtues, and wisdom. And, as the biblical tradition says, all the rest will be given unto you as well. An old example I always give, which is a very practical and simple observation that sometimes escapes us. The cause of the world's misery is not a lack of material goods, it is a lack of fraternity. The cause of hunger is a lack of honesty. What is missing is always above. What is missing is human beings. So, how does a human being fulfill themselves? With every step they take, by being human. So, it is a verb. I have now done my duty. I have now done what nature expected of me. I now act as a human being. I am at peace with life. I have given meaning to my life. I have placed myself in the role expected of me as a human being. Therefore, it is a verb, a realization achieved step by step. It is an interesting thing, because there is a thinker, whom I am sure all of you usually read, since he is such an easy read, Immanuel Kant. Those who know what I am talking about, especially right after lunch. It's quite something. Immanuel Kant had a habit. Why don't you read Kant? I don't know what's so funny. Anyway, Immanuel Kant used to say that human happiness is something you attain only when you're not pursuing it directly. Pursue your human duty, and happiness will arise as a byproduct. Do you understand? Because if you seek happiness as an end in itself, the kind of happiness you will achieve won't be truly human. You will want to be happy at any cost. And there are certain costs that simply are not worth paying. They strip you of your dignity, they take away your honor. So you become, I don't know, just as a byproduct you become happy as a human being. But if you say, I want to have fun at any cost, you might end up having fun at the expense of someone else's pain, and that is not human. So, this gives even more emphasis to happiness as something to be achieved, inch by inch, moment by moment, when we take our rightful place, when we turn our lives into a myth, because we bring myth into life, we make our lives sacred. We lift them out of the ordinary, we escape from banality. We enter a realm that, as the Greeks used to say, is where the greatest art of humanity lies, to steal moments from time and give them to eternity. When a person lifts their behavior out of the ordinary, when they take their rightful place in the universe, when they give meaning to their existence as a human being, they leave a trace behind. Someone will know that a human being passed through here. It makes a difference. Continuing on, what else is he saying? It is a continuous performance of acts of value. In other words, life is built. When a person seeks their place in the universe, that is human life. Everything depends on this. Because when a being steps out of their place, it creates a systemic effect, the vacuum they leave behind. The universe is harmony, the universe is cosmos. So, the entire universe awaits for the human being to take their rightful place. In other words, to seek values, virtues, and wisdom. Our life is built moment by moment and holds meaning both for ourselves and for the people we touch. It must be among the 10 quotes I like the most. It is a phrase by Cicero, in which he says, "Make sure you are a positive influence in the lives of those you are part of." Do you understand that? I passed through this world, became a little better than I was, and contributed so that others could also become a little better. That is it. You fulfilled your role, even if just a little. You fulfilled your role, made a difference, contributed to your growth as a human being, and through your example, others will grow as well. Because whether we like it or not, what we do inspires and becomes a reference for what others will do for better or for worse. And the more technical skills we have, the more people tend to follow us. And if that skill is not accompanied by a moral life, a life grounded in values, then we bear responsibility for the influence we generate. In the end, living, as I mentioned to you, is not just about pressing buttons on a blender. It is complicated. Human life is very complex. If someone is inspired by your actions in a certain way, part of that responsibility is yours. Through your example in the world, a portion of that responsibility belongs to you. I put together a brief summary, because those who know me know I have a habit of summarizing everything. Taking the opportunity to promote, this is a study technique, we will have open enrollment, and so on. This is a study technique. Everything you read, make a summary of it, because in the end, at the end of your life, you will look back and have to make a summary, a synthesis. What did I learn here? What did I teach? What did I do? The synthesis, everything that passes through our hands, we must approach with focus. What did I learn from this? From what this person said, from what I read. Lack of focus, lack of center, is also a lack of inner center. We do not know the synthesis of our existence, and therefore, we are scattered in everything. We go through things without seeing their heart, because we are not looking from our own heart. So, the main ideas I took from this. It is a human ideal. This is important for us to understand. For Epictetus, in order for him to think about happiness the way he does, he contemplates a universe that spans from ignorance to wisdom. And human beings necessarily have to go through this journey. At some point, they will have to go through it. They will move from ignorance and walk toward wisdom. The love of wisdom, which helps one make this journey, is called philosophy. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. And a human being is happy when they do what is proper to their nature, when they walk toward wisdom. All beings are happy when they move toward their ideal, that which gives them purpose in the world. So, when you tell someone, as I know some of you here are already our students at New Acropolis, I am taking a philosophy course, you will hear things like, oh, what nonsense. Why don't you take a computer course or Mandarin? It is trendy now, isn't it? Or something else entirely, philosophy is a waste of time. You might choose not to answer out of politeness, but within yourself, you must have an answer. Understand that philosophy is not a little school or a short course tucked away in a corner. Philosophy is the love of wisdom that helps guide you on that path, and you will have to walk it one way or another, with or without a course. Sooner or later, you will have to walk that path. A philosophy course helps you take that journey with greater awareness and less suffering. That ISSY schools of philosophy have always existed. But don't think that any human being is exempt from the responsibility, by virtue of simply being human, of walking toward wisdom, of leaving this life a little better than they arrived, and of helping others to grow. This is inevitable. Philosophy is an inescapable companion of life. Whether or not you want someone to help you, you will not be able to do without philosophy. Being a factor of contribution, as we have already mentioned, should be a concern. Ultimately, in our lives, one of the principal virtues is fraternity. I find it interesting how, at times, very simple people understand this. My life finds its meaning when I contribute to someone becoming a better person. The Buddhist tradition says that more than 1,000 meaningless words, a single word that brings comfort to the one who hears it is worth more. Have you spoken your word yet? Have you made a difference in someone's life? Because in the end, when you look back, what will have truly mattered in your life is that. If you grew and helped someone else grow, if you were a factor of contribution. If I was today, if I will be tomorrow, all of that adds yupan that will be my life. When I cross paths with another human being, when I make contact with them, today, right now, out there on the street, do they walk away better or worse than they were before they met me? With a more elevated or a more diminished consciousness? With more nobility or less? And the outcome of encounters like these will define my role in my life. It will be the function I fulfilled in the world. And it is worth reflecting on this, because life isn't all that long. Continuing on. He goes on to speak about fidelity, fides, which shares the same root as the word confidence, confides. He offers a very beautiful definition of fidelity. Fidelity is the right attitude. It is to believe in life as a whole, ordered according to laws. It is to refrain from trying to control what does not depend on us. Fidelity is the antidote to bitterness and bewilderment. Fidelity, my friends, is to believe in life as an ordered whole. In other words, life is not chaos, it is cosmos. There is no point in doing philosophy with someone who believes life is chaos. Everything I teach you today or tomorrow would seem random, so why would you study any of it? Let's just enjoy ourselves. Not that enjoying life is bad, let's be clear, enjoying is good. But let us understand that our actions generate corresponding reactions. This is inexorable. Life is not chaos. In fact, if life were chaos, then my thinking, which is part of life, would be chaotic too. And we wouldn't be able to understand each other here. If there is cosmos in my mind, then there is cosmos in the world. There is order. Life is an ordered whole. You have no idea how much of a difference it makes to believe in that. Do you know why? Because if life has meaning and is ordered, then the things that happen to you are not random. They carry symbolic meaning. They are trying to teach you something. There is a pedagogy in life. Or there isn't. Why would it happen, or not? There is chaos in the world. Believing that life is ordered redeems the arbitrariness of your life. Do you know what that beautiful phrase really means? It means that you can interpret each event and understand why you went through it. It is as if you came into life with an encrypted card. I came into this life to grow in certain specific aspects. So, this encrypted card draws to me all the factors that will provide the experiences I need to go through in order to grow. These factors will come through people, through circumstances. Why did they come? Because I called them. Do you understand that? I needed to go through that situation. If it hadn't been that person, it would have been someone else. If it hadn't been in that place, it would have been somewhere else. But I called those things into my life. Why? Because I needed to go through them in order to grow. This is what we call trials. You wouldn't want to enroll your child in a school and have no tests at all, would you? You know the child wouldn't learn anything. And human pedagogy is a reflection of the pedagogy of life. Trials and obstacles come because within us there is a kind of magnetism, our need for experience, our need for growth that attracts these factors. A student of mine, some years ago, once told me, "Professor, I work in a very unique place. It is me and 10 other people, and all 10 are annoying. How can there be so many annoying people in one place?" So I said to him, "Here is the thing, you took a public exam for annoying people, and they were the ones who passed. Obviously, you attracted these annoying people into your life. Maybe to discover that you are one of them. I don't know, I won't judge. But in some way, you called this into your life. They were out there, scattered, and they came because there was a need for mutual experience. So, there is an attraction we could call magnetic. Kind of push, an image, a pull between things that need to generate mutual experience, one for the other, so that both can grow from it. We call that difficulties, problems. If we understand where this is trying to lead us, we will have the ability to face it successfully, with much greater chances of success. Understand this, well, we are philosophers. New Acropolis is an institution that today is present around the world in more than 50 countries. We are philosophers. We are lovers of wisdom, not sages. So, I am telling you that I can face all my problems this way, but I will also say, I am trying and I won't give up. Philosophy means the spirit of self-improvement, not perfection. It means that we do not give up on redeeming our lives from arbitrariness, in other words, on giving meaning to all of this, on facing difficulties as trials and overcoming those trials. We do not give up on giving life an upward, meaningful direction, but that doesn't mean we have already achieved it. Whoever thinks they have already achieved something, as Socrates said, have they truly achieved it? If so, they are a sage. If not, and they don't even know what it is, they are ignorant. In either case, they are not a philosopher. A philosopher is someone who knows they are seeking and refuses to give that up. And that is what we are proposing. Let us seek. And let us not give up, because we cannot give up on ourselves. That is why we are here. That is what we came for. So, fidelity is the antidote to bitterness and bewilderment. Every time we feel that life is chaotic, we believe that things are unfair with us, that life gives us things we don't deserve. Professor George Angel Livraga, the founder of New Acropolis, says, if something was not meant for you, let's say, like a ball thrown your way, if it weren't for you, it would fly over your head, it wouldn't be at your level. If it hit you, it's because it's at your level, at your height, and it is meant for you. The things that reach us are the ones we need to experience. There is no chaos. There is an upward meaning in overcoming challenges, just like in everything else, like in your child's school. So, the idea of Stoicism was to help human beings place themselves consciously and harmoniously within life. It was a time of crisis. That is why I believe Stoicism is so relevant to our present times. Because we are living through a time of crisis. A crisis of values, a materialistic crisis. All other crises stem from this one. The crisis of reducing life too much to merely material things. A crisis of lack of self-knowledge, of alienation. They lived in a time of crisis. That is why it is a philosophy that feels so useful and so familiar to us. Continuing on, kindness. Kindness is both the practice and the reward itself. It is enough for us to be happy. We must tune our character as if it were the strings of an instrument. Kindness is the subtle readjustment of our character throughout our entire life. Another beautiful thing. Wow, how beautiful it is. But in practice, how does that really work? Can I change myself? Not only can you, but you must. That is exactly the point. Because we have an identity that is deeply rooted in our psyche, our emotions, and our thoughts, we believe that this is who we are. And therefore, we think it is unchangeable, because otherwise, we would lose our identity. But your true identity is far beyond that. The psyche is conditioned, just like the body. It is shaped by the environment. What you like, what you reject, if you had been born on the other side of the world, it would be different. If you had been born in another time, it would also be different, and yet you would still be you. There are social conditionings that you did not choose. Look within yourself and ask, which of your thoughts were truly chosen by you? Which of your preferences were consciously selected? I thought about the situation. I reflected, formulated a response, and created this way of looking at life. Very little. Most things are social cloning, like software. We just press play and it starts running. We don't have much authenticity. We practically copy social patterns. So, if these things, that which I like, what I reject, are things that are not contributing to my growth, I can change them. They are flexible. The human being is a work in progress. We are malleable beings, constantly under construction. To shape character is to learn how to guide your tendencies to enjoy certain things and reject others, and to learn to love what is good and reject what is harmful. In such a way that, automatically, by doing what you enjoy, you are also doing what helps you grow. And it is possible to do so. And you are not mutilating yourself, because even 10 years from now, your tastes will have completely changed. That is superficial. That is not who you are. You are something much greater, your discernment, your love for what is good, your values. Epictetus speaks very clearly about this, that we need to have an identity that stands above our thoughts and emotions, otherwise, they will dominate us. It echoes what Victor Hugo once said, that from time to time, we must lay out our possessions before us to discern who owns whom, who commands, and who is commanded. Our emotions and our thoughts are also things. They are vehicles. They are not who we are. We have an essence behind all of this, the one that watches life unfold. Emotions change throughout life, thoughts change throughout life, but there is a deep gaze that remains, observing this film as it passes. And it is always the same, providing us with continuity. I know that in childhood, adolescence, and youth, and even today, I am the same, because something has endured. What was that something? If all my thoughts have changed, if my feelings have changed, if my body has changed, What is it that remained and gave me this sense of identity, of continuity? I have an essence that watches life unfold. I have an essence behind all of this. To find it and to ensure that all these aspects truly serve it. In other words, to give a greater meaning to life. This is the formation of character. It is actually quite curious, because today, when we say that someone has a poorly formed character, it sounds offensive, even pejorative. But if you look at it from a Platonic or Stoic perspective, where a poorly formed character means loving things that are not good and rejecting things that are good, then who among us truly has a well-formed character? Do you see? Who among us does not need a good reconstruction, a profound reform? To be the architect of your own destiny, this too is a beautiful phrase, often repeated, but one that we understand very little. It means that you can become anything you are willing to dedicate yourself to becoming. That is why I exercise a certain caution. When people start chasing after too many definitions of their own personality. My horoscope, my Chinese zodiac, this, that. Physiognomy and all sorts of other traits, saying, I am this way because I am a Capricorn. Well, that is fine, but the truth is, I am a human being. And as the old saying goes, regarding human beings, the stars may incline, but they do not determine. All of astrology might be pointing me in one direction, but through an act of will and consciousness. If I choose to go the other way, I will. Once again, our founder, Professor George Angel Livraga, used to say that the difference between a log of wood and a boat made from the same wood is that the boat has oars. And it can sail against the current. The human being is endowed with willpower and has the ability to shape themselves. Sometimes, we prefer to settle into comfort and blame it on a Capricorn. Well, all right. But if we truly want to change, I don't believe that will limit you. That is merely a superficial trait. Goodness is the cultivation of character, a path to draw closer to embodying good in your life, to making good a tangible reality in your existence. Know yourself and master yourself. It is the continuation of the Delphic maxim. Know yourself, master yourself, transform yourself. These are also the stages of medieval alchemy, the work in black, the work in white, the work in red. To know oneself, to purify, and to elevate consciousness to the pinnacle of the human condition. This is humanism. Clearly define, pardon me, the person you want to become. Write it down in your journal. Create a valuable model. Seeds of greatness within us require an image to focus on and to germinate. What does this mean? It means this. Imagination or fantasy? Imitate a valuable model, that is, choose within the realm of your imagination what you want to build with your life. Because nature does not allow for vacuums. If you do not consciously build where you want to go, society will infiltrate a model there through fantasy. And before long, you will find yourself following a social model that is not necessarily what you truly wish to become. Because there will be no vacuum. Do you understand this? When I say, I love wisdom, loving wisdom is quite a beautiful phrase. But what does it mean to love wisdom? What is wisdom? I love the life of a wise person. Which wise person? I need to imagine what a wise person is like. What does a wise person do when they wake up late in the morning? When the alarm clock doesn't go off? What does a wise person do when they get stuck in traffic on the Brooklyn Bridge? What does a wise person do when their boss wakes up on the wrong side of the bed? A wise person, in concrete terms, I want to see them right here in front of me. I want to see how they respond to life, because I need to model my own life based on some image. You need an image. Otherwise, if we do not reflect on wisdom throughout history, on those wise individuals humanity has had, on those maxims of wisdom, and we don't build our own model, do you know what will happen? Before you know it, unconsciously you will be modeling yourself after the leading man from the primetime soap opera. Because you will have some model, one way or another. You don't like him? Then maybe someone from the 9 o'clock show. I don't know what it will be. But you will have to have some model. Where are you going to draw that from? You will end up picking a model from the collective. And before you realize it, as the biblical proverb says, you will be serving two masters at the same time. Or, as the Quran says, riding two camels at the same time. I have ridden one before, and let me tell you, it is already quite a challenge. Writing two at once? I can't even imagine what that would be like. In other words, it is not going to work. I may have a project to become a more integral, authentic person, but are you truly observing and managing your life with a clear image of how you intend to do that? If you don't, you might end up building a merely popular persona. A person who seeks fame, recognition, possessions, who desires what everyone else desires, who seeks success at the expense of others. That space within your imagination must be filled with a concrete model. There was a time in my life, my students often think I am joking when I say this, but it is true. Every time I read a book that spoke about the life of a wise person, about what they did, I would write it down on poster boards and stick them on the door of my wardrobe. It became a work of contemporary art, a beautiful display of all colors. It was not exactly pretty, but it was deeply inspiring. I needed to visualize what a wise person does, because it could not remain something vague or fleeting. How will shape myself? It is like an artist who looks at a model and sculpts the stone, otherwise, it won't work. Therefore, we must project valuable models. This is what Plato referred to as the hero, the one who is a step ahead of you. Because if they are 2 steps ahead, you can no longer reach them. A hero is a model who can respond to challenges that you are not yet able to face. Society should cultivate the memory of its heroes, because it gives human beings the reminder of how great they can become. And it fills that space within the imagination. Nature does not allow a vacuum. If you don't fill it, some social model will. Seek, and you shall find. Continuing on, philosophy reveals the false premises of our lives, which are the root causes of suffering. It demands courage. Philosophy. Well, of course, you will later need the willpower to change, but philosophy will not allow you the comfort of omission. It will reveal the truth to you. If you are honest with yourself, it will show you. I spoke with a person at work. Was I truly being sincere? I was really trying to help them. When you take a moment to reflect, you will see. I was envious. I wanted to jab at them. They achieved some victory that I hadn't, or something I hadn't shared in, something I hadn't found. Deep down, I wanted to jab at them. Behind it all, there was envy. How painful it is to stand before your own spirit and admit, I was envious, I was competitive, I was weak, I was cowardly. But from acknowledgement comes transformation. Otherwise, you end up trying to work on something that you are not. It does not work. There is no model for that. Imagine that I got lost and don't know where is the Met. So I call someone. I call John. John, how do I get there? The first thing he will ask me is, where are you, Lucia? I don't know. I am in a place that is kind of strange. It won't work. He can't guide me because he needs 2 points. Where I want to go and where I am. If I imagine that I am here, all the directions he gives me will be wrong. I don't move forward, so this realization of examining our inner drives and seeing, well, here it was envy, here it was competition, here it was weakness, there it was laziness, people die, but they don't admit they were lazy. And many times, they are. And it is a curious thing, because without acknowledgement, there is no possibility for growth. Thus, philosophy demands that you confront the false premises of your life, and this demands courage. But it is from there that transformation begins. Evil is a byproduct of negligence, laziness, and distraction from the true goals of our lives. Happiness is born from the commitment to our personal growth. Do you know what it means to sleep the sleep of the just? It means that today, I fought my battle to respond to life as a true human being. Every time life demanded something from me, I sought to respond as a human being should. I searched for a valuable model, a myth that could inspire me. I brought that myth to life. Today, I fought my battle. Today, I was truly human. Therefore, I have earned my day. I deserve human sleep, the sleep of the just. How many days do we truly earn the right to the sleep of the just? How many days have we fought our battle to respond to life in a truly human way? Or how many days have we lost that battle, but at least recognized it and committed ourselves to keep fighting the next day? Because defeat itself is not what matters most. If you learn from it, it can sometimes be extremely valuable. If you are aware, you can draw lessons from it so that, In that area, you are not defeated again. Thus, evil is a byproduct of negligence. And sometimes it is negligence, and sometimes it is unconsciousness. I don't know where I want to go as a human being. And therefore, there is no way to assess whether I am right or wrong. If I know and still neglect it, that is one thing. But sometimes, I don't even set a goal, precisely so that no one can hold me accountable, not even my own conscience. I also want to share an old story from when I first joined New Acropolis. This one is very old. When I joined New Acropolis, I called one of my philosophy students and asked, "Why haven't you been coming to class? Is the schedule not good for you? Should we find another group?" And this person gave me an answer. I was not able to get him to return, but his response was very useful to me. He said the following: "I will not study philosophy anymore. You know why? The things you are all telling me would force me to change, and I absolutely do not want to change. It is an enormous amount of work. I would rather not know. I don't know, I don't want to know, and I resent those who do know. It is just too much work. So, I am not going anymore, because you are telling me things that would hold me accountable." In other words, I did not have an answer for him at the time, and I am not sure I would have one even today. It is a complex situation. For those who do not wish to change, there is no other way. Thus, it is not only negligence toward our goals, but sometimes it's the complete absence of goals, simply to avoid being held accountable to them. As a result, life becomes utterly devoid of reference points. And in this life without references, we convince ourselves that by adding material benefits, we are somehow achieving true improvement. Today, there is a certain radicalism regarding material benefits. There are those who believe that the problems of the modern world are caused by computers and cell phones. Honestly, speaking as a philosopher, I believe this perspective is somewhat misguided. Material things are good as means. However, they are not sufficient to serve as the ultimate purpose of our lives. I can't help but imagine if Plato had access to WhatsApp, it would have been extraordinary. Have you ever imagined that? The entire world receiving the allegory of the cave. I believe these things are good. The real issue is that human beings lack true purpose. Material things alone are not enough to justify human life. Do not place the blame on things. As the technical support for my computer sometimes says, the problem lies with the operator. The problem is with the operator. We lack a true point of reference. And without a reference, then yes, the things we create, the technical devices we build, can sometimes even become questionable. Because if you are heading toward an abyss, if you go in a Porsche, you will get there much faster. It would be better to go on foot or by bicycle. Wouldn't you agree? If you have no purpose in life, if you are heading toward the abyss, don't go in a Porsche. It is too fast. You fall quickly. So it is better to choose a slower means. Thus, things lose their value when a person lacks a greater purpose for their life. Gears and motivations. We have already touched on this a bit. The gears behind everything, do you know what that really means? What are the mental frameworks and beliefs that truly govern my life? What are my true motivations? Because it is these that bear fruit in the world. If you look, for example, at Egypt, there are cities, there are grand ruins. It is hard to believe that so many people once passed through there. And so much time has passed. There is even a saying that goes, everyone fears time, but time fears the pyramids. And how those structures defy time. It is truly awe-inspiring. You see, many people have tried to build many things in the world, including in Egypt itself. But it seems that those who had a pure intention created works that pursue eternity. In the later period of Egypt, Akhenaten tried to build a capital, Tel El Amarna, and today there is nothing left in the desert. A tiny little city, built modestly, and yet it remains there. But Tel El Amarna, which Akhenaten tried to build, likely an act of vanity on his part, was not forgiven by time. Our motivations are deeply embedded in the quality of the fruits we leave behind in the world. In other words, material things will never be eternal, but the purer the motivations, the more their works strive toward eternity. Thus is born the classic. Classical works are created by individuals who, in some way, sought to shape goodness through their creations, driven by coherent motivations. This essence becomes imprinted in their works. All of these are teachings from the art of living, according to Epictetus. Be wary of social conventions. What is new is not necessarily good. Support only that which embodies justice, humanity, kindness, and similar virtues. This too is a tremendous act of courage. Something crosses your path. What exactly is it? Is it truly real? Let me take a moment to reflect. And sometimes, people might think you're being difficult. That's okay, maybe you are. But the truth is, we cannot simply pass things along automatically, especially things we do not necessarily agree with or that do not genuinely contribute to human growth. It takes effort, but everything that presents itself before you must be filtered through the lens of your principles. Let me give a rather simple example. Some of you might not even like it, but it is a fact. Every day, we see in the media, read more, read more, read more, support reading. The other day, I was at a book fair, and from a rough estimate I made, for every one worthwhile title, there were about 200 that were absolutely worthless. It probably wasn't much different from that. I started wondering, should we, instead of saying read more, be saying read better? Because certain things are more like pollution than genuine construction. But if I were to post something like that on Facebook, it would be torn apart. Because it is a trendy motto, a fashionable slogan. And individuality is not accepted. We are so democratic, yet individuality is seen as a grave sin. I don't say it out loud, as people don't want to hear it. But that doesn't stop me from thinking it. And I will act in coherence with that. In other words, if someone is going to read something utterly trivial, I would tell them to plant lettuce in their garden instead, because it would be more useful. And I even say, well, fine, I am not trendy, I am sorry. And it may even happen that, at some point, fashion aligns with me. But I have the obligation to consciously build my own life. To discover our role and remain faithful to it, regardless of whether others are faithful to theirs. We do not depend on others, but on our own elevated personal principles. As I told you all, not being able to pause the scene at any moment. Have you ever seen those Mardi Gras festival dances where they suddenly stop everything to take a picture? Pause the scene of your own life and ask yourself, what am I truly living for right now? Really? Where do I want to go with this? Do you remember well the motto from ISO 9000? Local action with global vision. Where do I want to go with all of this? To be able to answer that and continue the movie of your life. This is anchored in my life because I know where I want to go, and therefore, this is a goal that aligns with that direction, it contributes, it is consistent with my principles, so the movie goes on. Every moment of life is justified before my own conscience. There is nothing in the world you could trade for that. We are not here to be against anything. No one is here to be against anything. If the crowd is moving in the right direction, let us go with the crowd. It is good to walk in good company. But if the crowd is heading toward the abyss, go the other way alone and try to call a few to come with you. Do not be so needy that you would rather head into the abyss with company than save yourself alone. And if you save yourself, you may be able to carry a few others with you along the way. In the abyss, there is no solidarity. Everyone perishes. Therefore, it takes courage to build your own identity, to know yourself, to dive deep within and ask, who am I? How do I fulfill myself? What are the things that, all the noise, the distractions, truly express me in the world? The things I enjoy doing, in the sense that they are useful both to myself and to humanity, the tastes I have cultivated on my own. Who am I? Inner life, internal dialogue, the building of principles, and an ever-deepening clarity. This is maturity. Medieval alchemy used to say, and if you don't like it, it is their fault, not mine. They used to say that some human beings age like certain fruits. They go from being green straight to rotten, without ever ripening. I warned you that you would not like it. Because maturity is not a matter of time, it is a matter of human merit, of human consciousness. It ripens when a person has earned it. Maturity, which they referred to as serenity, is not simply a matter of chronological time passing automatically. It is a matter of internal time, and that only moves forward if you choose for it to do so. Maturity is very rare, and it is fundamental to our fulfillment. Identity, which is exactly what we were discussing. Where does it come from? From within our essence, from above, as John the Baptist used to say. Free your heart from ambition and fear and aspire to be nothing other than the best version of yourself. An exceptional life is one that responds to what is ours to do in the best way possible. As the old biblical phrase says, by your works, I will know you. When you see the tracks, you know a human being passed through here. How wonderful. A human being walked through the world. I fulfilled my role. I accomplished what nature expected of me. Mircea Eliade, a last century's anthropologist, said that the sacred is the function of giving meaning. You make life sacred when it has meaning, that is, when you do what corresponds to you as a human being. Values, virtues, and wisdom. Beautiful. I delivered my message to the world. I did not pass through in vain. All men die, but not all men truly live. Some merely survive. That is a line from a movie, Braveheart, remember? Cinema is also philosophy. There is someone here that I know who understands this very well. Cinema is also philosophy. Sometimes, but not always. It is about right action, the action that seeks to manifest human identity in the world. There is no good or bad event. The good person is the one who always asks, what is the right thing to do now? To give things their proper names, to observe rather than to judge. Was what happened to me positive or negative? It depends. Another person experiencing the same situation might interpret it in a very positive way. In other words, the harm is not in the thing itself, but in a particular attachment, a specific desire, that the event contradicted and touched me in a personal way. If I could face life, actually, one of the fundamental things is not to take anything personally. If I approached life as something that conspires for my evolution, would think that life is persecuting me. Or that it is unfair, something we often do. If a person has a disability, say, a physical disability, and they pass by you, you might say, wow, this person lives with great dignity, despite their physical condition. That is wonderful. You don't think that they have that physical disability just to affect you. Now, if someone passes by with a moral flaw, you might say, they are doing this just to upset me. And a moral flaw is far worse than a physical defect. They don't have a moral flaw to upset or harm you. They have it because it's the best they have managed up to this point. Now, they are crossing your path because you have called them into your life. Do you understand? But what are they, really? The best they have managed to become so far. They are not acting out of personal spite. When we personalize problems, we begin to see ourselves as victims. And victimization is the most widely practiced sport in today's society. We must call things by their true names, observe rather than judge. We must contemplate the world with freshness, free from preconceived notions. We all know very little. Arrogance is merely a mask for cowardice. To contemplate the world with freshness means to be free from prejudice. Be mindful of memory. Imagine this, you drink orange juice. This orange juice, or the ascorbic acid it contains, helps build a stronger defense within your body. According to those who speak wisely, it helps you become less susceptible to colds. All right, let's say that's true. I now have greater resistance to catching a cold. But after making the orange juice, the remnants, the orange peels, I naturally throw them away. The essence of the orange juice remains within me, strengthening my resilience to life. Now imagine if, out of gratitude or for any other reason, you went through life dragging those orange peels along with you. That is, more or less, what we do with the events of our lives. Wow, you are such a patient person, and then you tell me, oh, you have no idea. Sit down, and I will tell you how much I suffered. To end up this way, do you know what they are doing? Dragging the orange peels along. Ideally, we would learn from life, but forget how much we had to pay for that learning. That would be the right thing to do, because otherwise, memory contaminates us in such a way that we can no longer take even a single step forward. And sometimes, even worse, we drag the peels along without ever drinking the orange juice. In other words, we learn nothing. That can still happen. And then we start to develop prejudice, judging the future and the present based on the burdens of the past. There comes a certain moment when we can no longer take even a single step forward. Then, the Tibetan Book of the Bar's Pardon. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo Thodol, says the following: when you carry such a heavy burden that you can no longer grow, you have chosen to die. Life simply comes and carries it out. There is no purpose in a life that does not offer you the opportunity to grow. Do you understand this? Life carries out according to the will of the one who chooses. If growth is no longer possible, then what is the purpose of life? It may sound harsh, but it is something to reflect upon because it seems quite sensible. To combat negative habits, to space them out, to win each day without them. This is something quite profound because one of the greatest obstacles to the process of self-improvement is believing that we will achieve easy victories. Nothing changes if it is too easy. If I create more space between one criticism and another, between one weakness and another, between one acute crisis of laziness and another, I have already achieved something. Vices are difficult, they are deeply rooted. If you keep fighting, creating space between the symptoms, you gain timido, not give up on yourself. We must not give up on ourselves. It is like the joke about dieting, you know it, right? When do we start a diet? Eternally, per hominum seculum seculorum. On Monday mornings. Then, on Monday, I immediately eat a huge chocolate bar. And then I say, no, now I give up, now I will eat 2, 3, because I have already ruined everything. No. You suffered a defeat, but don't give up. Keep fighting, keep fighting. I gave in, so just forget it. No, don't give up. There is no way to give up. Life is not something you can simply give up on. We cannot abandon the fight against our own flaws. However, we must not fall into the illusion that we will be victorious right away, or that we will win easily. It is not easy. But that is exactly what it is about. We came into this world to achieve victory over ourselves, and to forge a purer identity, to deliver our message to the world, and to rest in the great sleep of the just. End of story. We cannot give that up. One must be willing to pay the price to learn how to live, for living is an art. It is an art, it is a science, demands refinement, precision, observing your thoughts, your feelings, understanding your true motivations, creating an environment where your consciousness can rise. In other words, constantly nurturing elevated thoughts, engaging in good reading, good music. Reflection, deep, meaningful reflection that, at times, can grant you an entire week of elevated consciousness. Just this week, I was talking about this. A phrase that I find very beautiful. It says that discipline is doing what is necessary to keep your consciousness elevated. Do what is necessary, listen to good music, engage in meaningful conversations, reflect deeply, do whatever it takes to maintain your consciousness at a higher level. Fight your daily battle for the conquest of your own self. Put your principles into practice now. Define your principles and submit yourself to them as if they were laws. Enough with the excuses and postponements. From this moment forward, vow to stop disappointing yourself. Decide to be an extraordinary person and do whatever it takes to become one. Now. In other words, Epictetus really puts us against the wall. Go on, it's not impossible. You have all the tools you need. You have a motivation, greater than that of any other being, which is the ultimate human motivation, to build oneself. To create a world that is just a little bit better because you existed. Go now, don't miss the opportunity. And finally, I brought you a quote that is not from Epictetus. It is a small saying that had a particular significance in my life. And it comes from an Irish writer. He says the following: life is a whetstone. It wears us down or sharpens us, depending on the metal we are made of. So, if it sharpens us, it means our metal is well tempered. If it wears us down, perhaps our steel is not properly tempered. Well, given the time we have, this is the small message I wanted to share with you. In fact, we have even gone a little over time. I hope it at least serves as a point of reflection, that it can inspire in you a sense of empowerment, that I can, I should, and I have good reasons to go and build a more humane life. Because from there, true coexistence becomes possible. Otherwise, it is merely an illusion. I create a facade, a kind of social conditioning, where we are all very polite, but in truth, we are indifferent to one another. A facade does not transform, does not bring happiness, and does not solve social problems, because at the slightest tremor, it collapses. Human beings are not creatures that can simply be trained. You are what you do when the last door closes behind you. Either you build yourself in a more humane way, or no one will make you a person who truly coexists with others, another human being. Otherwise, you live in a bubble of isolation and selfishness. There is no true human sense of life. There is no way to change something like that. This is the starting point for any change, for any problem you set out to address. Know yourself, transform yourself. That's it. Now, you'll open up for questions.